Hello, I'm Linda Dana. As the Research Associate for Human Dimensions of the Coast at CSI, I use a mix of qualitative and quantitative methods to try to better understand human values, behaviors, actions, communities, and institutions that influence and are influenced by the systems and resources of our coasts, oceans, and estuaries. Like other researchers, there are a number of threads woven together in my work, but one of the overarching questions that drives a lot of it is how do the meanings, beliefs, and values that people attach to natural resources shape their perspectives on use, management, restoration, and conservation of those resources, particularly under changing conditions. Pressures and changes on the coast in things like resource extraction, jobs, and broader changes encompassed under global change can lead to interruptions and alterations in the flow of benefits that are produced by marine ecosystem services. And these can have effects on the well-being of the coastal communities that value and depend upon those services. In my research, I use a multidimensional definition of well-being after McGregor and others. It's a state of being with others where human needs are met, where one can act meaningfully to pursue one's goals, and where one can enjoy a satisfactory quality of life. Well-being is such a useful guiding concept because in that definition, we can hear subjective and relational elements alongside objective components, reminding us to think of well-being as having these intermeshed dimensions, the material, relational, and subjective. Well-being is defined differently by different individuals and groups in different contexts, and in that way, it's a great tool for engaging with the heterogeneity among stakeholders and for taking a holistic look at the effects of change on the coast. In this way, a second guiding question for my research is, how does coastal change alter the flow of benefits from ecosystem services, and how does that affect the well-being of coastal communities? And I thought I'd use the rest of my 5 minutes to talk about a project that took the opportunity to look at one kind of change, growth and intensification of a coastal industry, namely shellfish aquaculture, and how it can modify local well-being and how those modifications are valued. That is, we wanted to understand how the benefits that accrue to the aquaculture industry and the environmental, economic, and social costs of the industry as a whole translate into costs and benefits for coastal communities and how those are distributed across a community. Fish farming or aquaculture in some form or another has been around for a long time, but aquaculture at an industrial scale is relatively new, and there are many questions about its cumulative impacts. It can make important contributions to global protein supplies while conserving wild fish populations. But the industry occurs locally, where it generates other influences and effects in the surrounding social ecological system. Focusing on shellfish aquaculture in Bain Sound, which is off of Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada, we used semi-structured interviews and participant-employed photography with informants both from and outside of the industry to unpack these effects. We found that shellfish aquaculture has several domains of effect on well-being: environment, economy, and lived experience. To assess the depth and breadth of perceptions about what matters about these effects, we followed up with a household mail survey. The survey detected a good deal of variability in perceptions and that the variability exists at a very local scale. But survey respondents also expressed a good deal of uncertainty, suggesting that opinions about shellfish aquaculture do not seem to be set. This work helps to demonstrate how the dimensionality and variability of the subjective component of well-being can be a tool for discovering the spectrum of values affected by changing coastal uses, like shellfish aquaculture. Lessons from this work have fed into current collaborative work here in North Carolina. Colleagues and I are looking at the structure of values associated with seafood production in North Carolina and how changes, including the expansion of aquaculture, can affect well-being in coastal fishing communities, alongside looking at the structure of values associated with consumption among seafood consumers in the state. We're interested in how production and consumption values overlap, or don't. Additional work on the social dimensions of marine aquaculture, comparing findings in North Carolina to outcomes in Maine and Florida, are also ongoing. Thanks so much for letting me share a glimpse of my research and interests in the human dimensions of social ecological systems at the coast. I'm always open for a chat about these and other topics at the contact info shown here.